Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading from our UPSC Civil Services examination point of view. Now today let us discuss the important news which has appeared in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 23rd March 2021. The news to be discussed has been displayed on your screen and timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So on this note, let's start our today's discussion from our prelims and mains perspective. Now, our first article for discussion appears on page number 6. It says, Delhi's administration as the tail wagging the dog. The government of NCT of Delhi Amendment Bill 2021 will reduce the elected government to a mere vestigial organ. Now you must go through this article considering important aspects which can be asked in your upcoming prelims examination. For example, earlier Delhi was Part C state. So what are these different part states, that is Part A, B, C or D states? And who governed these different types of states, that is Part A, B, C or D states? So you must know about these aspects from your prelims perspective. Next is about Balakrishnan Committee, as this particular news highlights about Balakrishnan Committee. So you must know about the historical backdrop of Delhi, especially how the Legislative Assembly in Delhi has shaped over a period of years starting from 1952. Next, this article also mentions about States Reorganization Commission. So here you need to know about the State Reorganization Commission along with the State Reorganization Act, which led to the formation of states and union territories in India and recently passed the NCT Amendment Bill 2021. Now, why I am saying that this topic is important? Because questions have been asked by UPSC in the mains examination, as you can see in 2016 and in 2018. Now, the question asked in 2016 was very straightforward. It said, discuss the essentials of the 69th Constitutional Amendment Act and anomalies, if any, that have led to recent reported conflicts between the elected representatives and the institution of Lieutenant Governor in the administration of Delhi. Do you think that this will give rise to a new trend in the functioning of Indian federal politics? So we see a direct question on 69th Constitutional Amendment regarding the National Capital Territory of Delhi, especially regarding the conflicts between elected representatives and the institution of Lieutenant Governor. And on similar lines, another question was asked in 2018 based on a very important Supreme Court judgment which highlighted the importance of elected representatives and said that the LG cannot decide every matter as its matter of discretion. So this question in 2018 read, whether the Supreme Court judgment of July 2018 can settle the political tussle between Lieutenant Governor and elected government of Delhi, examine. So we see that this topic of Delhi and its associated developments becomes important not only from the mains perspective, but also questions can be asked from various aspects which has been provided in this particular article. So let us go through some of the important highlights, especially from our prelims perspective. Now regarding different kind of states, there were Part A states, Part B states, Part C states and Part D states. Now Part A states were former governors' provinces. Part B states were former princely states. Part C states were former commissioners' provinces. And Andaman and Nicobar Islands formed part of Part D states. And it was administered by a central government appointed lieutenant governor, whereas the commissioners' provinces were governed by the chief commissioners appointed by the President of India. So again, these aspects becomes important from your prelims perspective. Now, before understanding about States Reorganization Act and also about the legislative history of the Union Territory of Delhi, let's take up these practice questions to understand that what are the important things which we need to know in order to attempt such kind of questions if asked in the prelims examination. So let's take up this practice question on States Reorganization Act. It says, with reference to States Reorganization Act 1956, consider the following statements. First, the Constitution First Amendment Act 1951 implemented the scheme of states reorganization. So here you need to know the correlation between State Reorganization Act and which Constitution Amendment implemented the provisions. Second, the recommendations of State Reorganization Commission to divide India into 16 states was accepted by the Union government, and accordingly the States Reorganization Act provided for the formation of such states. So here again we need to know that whether all the recommendations regarding division of states and union territories as suggested by the State Reorganization Commission was accepted by the central government. And third, it says that the State Reorganization Act provided for amendment of first and fourth schedule to the Indian Constitution, along with provisions for high courts of new states, zonal council, and all India services. So here we need to know the various provisions with respect to the States Reorganization Act. So in this regard, let's go through some of the important highlights of States Reorganization Act of 1956, which you must know from your prelims perspective. Now, this commission was constituted in 1953 by the then Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, and the commission submitted its report in September 1955. Now, this commission was headed by S. Fazal Ali and had two members, namely K. M. Panikar and H. N. Kunzru. Now, the Commission suggested that the whole country be divided into 16 states and 3 centrally administered areas. However, this suggestion was not accepted as the central government divided the entire country into 14 states and 6 union territories. So, these 14 states were Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Bihar, Bombay, Jammu and Kashmir, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh, Madras, Mysore, Odisha, Punjab, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, and West Bengal. Whereas the 6 union territories were Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Delhi, Himachal Pradesh, Lakshadweep, Minicoy and Amindevi Islands, Manipur, and Tripura. Now, another important highlight is that Andhra State Act 1953 provided for the formation of State of Andhra Pradesh, and this was done based on linguistic lines. This act further increased the area of the state of Mysore and also diminished the area of state of Madras. Now, regarding Constitution Amendment, the State Reorganization Act of 1956 was implemented through Constitution's 7th Amendment Act of 1956. Now, this again becomes an important point from your prelims point of view. It says that this amendment further added Article 350A of the Indian Constitution, which is designed to implement one of the States Reorganization Commission's important recommendations with respect to safeguarding of linguistic minorities in states after reorganization. So, from your prelims perspective, Article 350A and its correlation with State Reorganization Commissions and also Constitution's 7th Amendment becomes important. Further, the State Reorganization Act 1956 also provided for the following, such as amendment to first and fourth schedule of the Indian Constitution, provisions of High Court for new states, zonal council, delimitation of constituencies, all India services, and even services under State Public Service Commission. So, these can be said to be important highlights regarding States Reorganization Act 1956, as questions can be asked in your upcoming prelims examination with respect to this particular act. So coming back to the answers, the first and second statements becomes incorrect, as it was the Constitution's 7th Amendment and not the first amendment, and the recommendations of State Reorganization Commission to divide India into 16 states and 3 centrally administered territories was not accepted by the central government. However, the third statement becomes correct. So the question was, which of the statements given above are correct? Here the correct answer becomes D, that is 3 only. Now in the comment section, you can let me know which were the states as recommended by the State Reorganization Commission was not accepted by the Union government. Now let's take up this practice question number 2. It says, consider the following statements with reference to the Union Territory of National Capital Territory of Delhi. First, prior to the enactment of States Reorganization Act 1956, Delhi was categorized under Part C states. Yes, this statement is correct as we have just seen. Second, the Delhi Administration Act 1966 provided for election to Metropolitan Council to be elected for duration of 5 years. Now here you must know about the Delhi Administration Act 1966 as it provided for limited governance for the then UT of Delhi. Third, based on the recommendations of Balakrishnan Committee, Constitution 69th Amendment Act and Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Act 1991 were passed. So in this regard, let's go through some of the important highlights with respect to the Union Territory of Delhi. Now regarding the historical backdrop with respect to Delhi Legislative Assembly, it says that Delhi was initially a Part C state. Further, the Delhi Legislative Assembly came into being for the first time on 7th March 1952 and Chaudhry Brahm Prakash became the first Chief Minister of Delhi in 1952. It says that however, after a prolonged standoff with the Chief Commissioner and later the Union Minister Govind Ballabh Pant over the issues of jurisdiction and functional autonomy, eventually this led to his resignation in 1955. Further, in 1956, the Constitution of India was amended to implement the provision of States Reorganization Act, that is through the Constitution's 7th Amendment. And then Delhi became a union territory to be administered by an administrator to be appointed by the President. However, 10 years later, Delhi Administration Act 1966 provided for a limited representative government in Delhi through a metropolitan council comprising 56 elected members and 5 nominated members. And this council was to be elected for a period of 5 years. Now, the news says that this structure continued for many years with repeated political demands for full statehood to be granted to Delhi. So, it was based on these demands that the Balakrishnan Committee was formed in 1987. And in 1989, the committee recommended that Delhi should continue to be a union territory, but there must be a legislative assembly and council of ministers responsible to the assembly with appropriate powers. And the commission also suggested that appropriate constitutional measures should also be taken to confer the national capital a special status. And it was based on this report the Constitution's 69th Amendment Act was passed, which provided for Article 239AA and Article 239AB. And also based on this report, the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Act 1991 was also passed. So based on this understanding, let's go through the options again. First, prior to enactment of States Reorganisation Act 1956, Delhi was categorized under Part C states. Yes, this is correct. Second, the Delhi Administration Act 1966 provided for elections to Metropolitan Council to be elected for a duration of 5 years. Yes, this is also correct. And third, based on the recommendations of Balakrishnan Committee, Constitution 69th Amendment Act and Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Act 1991 were passed. Yes, this is also correct. So the question is, which of the statements given above are correct? So here, correct answer become D, that is 1, 2 and 3. So these are the important highlights which you must know from your prelims point of view. So the Constitution 69th Amendment Act provided for Article 239AA and Article 239AB. And Article 239AA mentions that there shall be a legislative assembly for the National Capital Territory, and seats in such assembly shall be filled by members chosen by direct election from territorial constituencies in the National Capital Territory. And Article 239AB provides for the provision for failure of constitutional machinery in the National Capital Territory of Delhi. So please remember these important provisions with respect to Constitutional 69th Amendment Act. As to if questions are asked, then you should be able to answer them in your upcoming prelims examination. Now regarding your syllabus, this topic gets covered under Polity and Governance, and in the mains gets covered under GS paper 2. Now the next news to be discussed appears on page number 7. It says, of judges, closed probes and the bar's omerta. Citizens ought to be informed of the outcome of an inquiry into serious allegations against a future Chief Justice of India. Now the whole backdrop to this article is that the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister has leveled allegations of corruption against Justice N.V. Ramana, and it is in this regard this article highlights that there must be a proper investigation into the allegations made by the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh. Why? Because Justice N.V. Ramana will soon become India's Chief Justice of India. So from our examination perspective, we need to know about two important things. One is about the removal or impeachment of a judge of a Supreme Court of India, which has been provided under Article 124 Clause 4 and Article 124 Clause 5, and also under the Judges Inquiry Act. And second is a Committee on In-House Procedure, which is established as per the judgment of Supreme Court as agreed in 1997. Now here, from your examination perspective, what you need to do is to differentiate between these two processes, as Committee on In-House Procedure takes remedial measures against judges against allegations of misconduct, whereas the impeachment process has also been provided under the Judges Inquiry Act. And it was on this ground that a question has been asked by UPSC in the prelims of 2019. Now let's go through this question as asked by UPSC to understand certain facets about the Judges Inquiry Act 1968. So the question says, consider the following statements. First, the motion to impeach a judge of Supreme Court of India cannot be rejected by the Speaker of Lok Sabha as per the Judges Inquiry Act 1968. No, this motion can be rejected either by the Speaker or even by the Chairman of Rajya Sabha, as what happened with respect to the impeachment motion of previous Chief Justice of India. Second, the Constitution of India defines and gives details of what constitutes incapacity and proved misbehavior of judges of the Supreme Court of India. Now, to understand this particular statement as provided by UPSC, we need to be thorough with respect to Article 124 Clause 4 and Article 124 Clause 5 as to what has been provided in the constitutional provisions regarding the removal of judges of Supreme Court and High Court, as the removal process for both the judges of Supreme Court and High Court is the same. Now, both the judges of High Court and Supreme Court are appointed by the President of India. Now, in this regard, Article 217 says about appointment and conditions of the office of a judge of a High Court. Now, here it highlights that a judge of High Court may be removed from his office by the President in the manner provided in Clause 4 of Article 124 for the removal of a judge of a Supreme Court. So, we see that the removal process for both High Court and Supreme Court judge is guided by Article 124 Clause 4. So, let's go through Article 124 Clause 4 of the Indian Constitution. It says, a judge of the Supreme Court shall not be removed from his office except by an order of the President passed after an address by each House of the Parliament, supported by a majority of the total membership of that House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of that House present and voting. And this must be presented to the President in the same session for the removal on the ground of proved misbehavior or incapacity. Now see, these two terms has been just mentioned in Article 124 Clause 4 but not been defined as to what constitutes proved misbehavior or incapacity. Also highlight the word proved, so it has been presented in the past tense. So if any allegation is presented regarding the judge of a High Court or Supreme Court, such allegation must be a proved allegation of misbehavior or incapacity. Article 124 Clause 5 says that Parliament may by law regulate the procedure for the presentation of an address and for the investigation and proof of misbehavior or incapacity of a judge under Clause 4. And based on Article 124 Clause 5, Parliament has enacted the Judges Inquiry Act of 1968. So again, going through this particular provision, it says the Constitution of India defines and gives details as to what constitutes incapacity and proved misbehavior. No, this statement is also incorrect because Constitution of India does not define or has to give details about incapacity or proved misbehavior. The third statement says the details of the process of impeachment of judges of Supreme Court of India are given in the Judges Inquiry Act 1968. Yes, this statement is correct. And Judges Inquiry Act 1968 has been enacted based on Article 124 Clause 5. Fourth, if the motion for the impeachment of a judge taken up for voting, the law requires the motion to be backed or passed by each House of the Parliament and supported by a majority of total membership of that House and by not less than 2/3 of the total members of that House present and voting. So the question was, which of the statements given above are correct? Now as you can see, the fourth statement is almost a replica of Article 124 Clause 4, where it mentions about a type of majority which is needed to remove a judge of a Supreme Court or High Court from his office. So in this question, first and second statement becomes incorrect, whereas the third and fourth statement becomes correct. So the correct answer becomes C, that is 3 and 4 only. So after understanding about this particular question and also about the process to remove the judge of a High Court and Supreme Court as provided under Article 124 Clause 5, let us also understand about the in-house procedure which has been constituted to take remedial measures against judges against allegations of misconduct. So, based on the restatement of values of judicial life, which is again a set of principles containing essential elements of ideal behavior for judges, Supreme Court of India constituted the Committee on In-House Procedure to take suitable remedial measures against erring judges. And the restatement of values of judicial life was provided by Justice Verma in 1997. And the report of the Committee on In-House Procedure has provided for the procedure for investigation. Now these investigations can be investigations against allegations of corruptions or misconduct. And these investigations are not in the nature of a judicial inquiry but rather a fact-finding committee. Another important aspect is that these investigations are done by peers and not by outside agency, and this is done to ensure the independence of judiciary. Now, inquiry can be initiated against a sitting High Court or a Supreme Court judge, including the Chief Justice of India or the Chief Justice of a High Court. Now, in case the inquiry finds any merit, then a 3-member committee is constituted which comprises of Supreme Court judges, and they hold investigation or inquiry into the allegations. Now, an important point here is that judges against whom inquiry is to be made is entitled to appear but cannot be represented through a lawyer, nor can any witness be represented through a lawyer, because this inquiry is sort of a fact-finding inquiry and does not have a judicial nature. That is, this inquiry is not a judicial inquiry. So, representation by a lawyer and cross examination of witness are not allowed. Now, another important aspect is that the committee can devise their own rules and procedures, which is consistent with principles of natural justice. And based on the type of inquiry conducted, committee can file three kind of reports. First, that there is no substance in the allegation filed by the complainant. Second, that there is sufficient substance in the allegations of misconduct, and such substance is so serious as to initiate proceedings for removal of a judge, and this removal will be done as per the Judges Inquiry Act of 1968. And third, that there is substance in the allegation, but misconduct disclosed is not of such a serious nature as to initiate removal proceedings. So these are some of the important highlights with respect to the in-house procedure which has been established through the 1997 Supreme Court judgment. Now regarding the syllabus, this article becomes important from the perspective of Indian polity and Constitution of India from the prelims examination, and in the mains gets covered under GS paper 2. And as we have seen that UPSC has already asked questions on Judges Inquiry Act, so questions can again be asked on the in-house procedure regarding inquiry into allegations of misconduct. With this, let's move to the next article. Now let's take up the next news appearing on page number 7. It says no rights despite reforms. Now this particular article highlights about the Kafala system in the Gulf Cooperation Council countries and other Middle East countries. So here in this article, from our examination perspective, especially from our prelims point of view, we need to know about the Kafala system and also about the GCC countries or the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. Now if you see, a question was asked by UPSC in the prelims of 2016. The question was, which of the following is not a member of Gulf Cooperation Council? Options were Iran, Saudi Arabia, Oman and Kuwait. Now to answer this question, let's go through the importance of GCC countries. Now there are 6 GCC countries, namely UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar and Kuwait. And all the GCC countries are monarchies where majority population comprises Sunni Muslims. And it is here where these 3 countries get separated from Iran, as Iran is not a part of Gulf Cooperation Council. Neither is Iran a monarchy. Further, the GCC countries are bound by the GCC Charter. And in this regard, the Supreme Council of Gulf Cooperation Council is the highest authority of the organization. And this Supreme Council of GCC is composed of the heads of the member states, that is, head of the member states of these 6 countries. Now, under the GCC, there is another council referred as the Ministerial Council, and this council is composed of the foreign ministers of all the member states of Gulf Cooperation Council. Now, there is another institution, namely the Secretary General, who is appointed by the Supreme Council for a term of 3 years, which is renewable for another term. So, these can be said to be some of the important terms with respect to Gulf Cooperation Council countries. Now, regarding the Kafala system is a sponsorship system which defines the relationship between migrant workers and their local sponsor or kafil, which is usually their employer. So basically it's a relation between the employer as well as that of the migrant worker. And under this kafala system, the migrant workers hardly have any rights and are treated like subjects. Now the kafala system is found in most of the Arab countries, including the GCC countries as well as Jordan and Lebanon. So from your examination perspective, you must know about the kafala system and also with respect to GCC countries. Now you should also know about the location of the GCC countries. So if we take this map, we see here is UAE, here is Qatar, this is Bahrain, this is Kuwait, this is Saudi Arabia and this is Oman. So these are the 6 GCC countries, namely Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE and Oman. Now regarding your syllabus, this topic becomes important primarily from your prelims perspective, especially with respect to current events of international importance along with world geography. Another important aspect is that Iran is mostly against these GCC countries. And it was because of this relationship between Iran and the GCC countries, a question was asked by UPSC in the prelims of 2016. The next news to be discussed appears on page number 14. It says, Sops under RODTEP to see delay. Now this RODTEP refers to remission of duties or taxes on export product. Now, this report highlights that the Government of India has recently decided to cap the benefits under the Merchandise Export from India scheme at Rs 2 crores per exporter on exports made between September 1, 2020 to December 31, 2020. Now, this has been done because of a WTO dispute panel ruling against India. So, in this regard, the news highlights that the government has decided to withdraw the MEIS scheme, which was introduced through the Foreign Trade Policy of 2015-20 from 1st January 2021 because of WTO dispute panel ruling, as the scheme was found violative of WTO agreements on subsidies and countervailing measures. Now, this aspect becomes important from your prelims perspective, that Government of India has decided to withdraw the Merchandise Export from India scheme because it was found violative of WTO agreement on subsidies and countervailing measures. And accordingly, the Government of India has sought to introduce the WTO compliant scheme known as remission of duties or taxes on export product. So a question in your prelims examination can be asked based on both these two schemes, namely the Merchandise Export from India scheme and remission of duties or taxes on export product scheme. Now we all know that GST was introduced as a major indirect tax reform in India, and it subsumed number of indirect taxes in the country. And GST also allowed input tax credit. Further, introduction of GST also sought to do away with the cascading effect of tax on tax. However, the industries pay number of taxes outside the GST limits or outside the GST regime. And accordingly, for the taxes which have been paid outside the GST limits, on those taxes, input tax credit cannot be availed by the industries. And since the industries pay taxes other than the taxes imposed under GST, this overall results in increase in price of goods. And such taxes which are paid are referred as embedded taxes, such as electricity duty, mandi tax, clean energy cess, etc. Now, the problem was that these embedded taxes made the product more costly in the foreign market, and this rendered these products uncompetitive. So, to ensure that our products compete in the foreign market, UN Cabinet has now approved WTO approved remission of duties and taxes on exported products. It says that under this scheme, the exporters are provided with reimbursements of taxes, duties, and levies imposed at the central level, state level, and at the local level. And the refund is provided in the form of duty credit scrip. Now, these scripts can be used by exporters to pay various taxes or duties to the government. And these duty scripts can also be sold by the exporters in the open market. So we understand that because of the WTO ruling, the government has decided to cap the benefits under the Merchandise Export from India scheme at Rs 2 crores per exporter on the exports between 1st September 2020 to 31st December 2020. Further, the Government of India has also decided to withdraw MEIS scheme from 1st January 2021. And this has been done mainly on account of two reasons. First, introduction of more WTO compliant remission of duties or taxes on export product scheme, and second, to fund crunch on account of COVID-19 problems. Thus, this scheme becomes important from your examination perspective, as questions can be asked in your prelims and mains examination. In the prelims, questions can be asked in the section of Indian economy, and in the mains, questions can be asked in the section of Indian economy under GS paper 3. With this, let's move to the next article. Now let's take up the next news for discussion, which appears on page number 10. It says, Gandhi Peace Prize for Mujib and Sultan Qaboos. Award recognizes their visionary leadership as per the Ministry of Culture. So, the Ministry of Culture has announced that father of the nation of Bangladesh, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and the former Sultan of Oman, the late Qaboos bin Said Al Said, will be awarded the Gandhi Peace Prize for the year 2020 and 2019 respectively. That is, father of the nation of Bangladesh will be awarded the Gandhi Peace Prize for the year 2020, and the former Sultan of Oman will be given the Gandhi Peace Prize for the year 2019. Now, regarding the Gandhi Peace Prize, it says that it is an annual award instituted by the Government of India since 1995, which was 125th birth anniversary commemoration year of Mahatma Gandhi. Now, the award is open to all persons regardless of nationality, race, languages, caste, creed, or sex. And the award carries an amount of Rs 1 crore, a citation, a plaque, and an exquisite traditional handicraft or handloom item. Now, another important aspect regarding the award is the jury for the Gandhi Peace Prize. And this jury is chaired by the Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. and comprises of two ex officio members, namely the Chief Justice of India and the leader of single largest opposition party in Lok Sabha. Other than this, two eminent members are also part of the jury. They are Shri Om Birla, that is Speaker of Lok Sabha, and Shri Bindeshwar Pathak, who is the foundation of Sulabh International Social Service Organization. So, the Gandhi Peace Prize for the year 2019 was chosen for the late Sultan of Oman, Qaboos, for his unparalleled vision and leadership, as his leadership helped to strengthen relations between India and Oman, and his efforts also promoted peace and non-violence in the Gulf region. Whereas the Gandhi Peace Prize recognized the immense and unparalleled contribution of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in the inspiring liberation of Bangladesh. He brought stability to a nation born out of strife. He laid the foundation for a close and fraternal relations between India and Bangladesh, and he also promoted peace and non-violence in the Indian subcontinent. So, for these reasons, the father of Bangladesh was chosen for the Gandhi Peace Prize for the year 2020. Now, questions can be asked in the UPSC examination on Gandhi Peace Prize as has been asked in the past. And from your syllabus point of view, this topic gets covered under current events of national importance in the prelims examination. So please remember these important aspects with respect to the Gandhi Peace Prize. So with this, we come to an end to today's discussion. And with this, let's take up the question for the day.